Okay, so it's Joel here. I'm outside here with the first gen 12 valve Cummins, and we've got a little project. I don't have a whole lot of time right now, but I can't help but want to get started on this project. Essentially, I'm going to show you what I got here. I went ahead and we're going to go ahead and put this gauge set up, and basically this piece here is going to go on the inner side right up inside the door there on the driver's side. Now I went ahead already, as I was just trying to prepare, I went ahead and disassembled the dash here. That's one of those things to where in the instructions they say it's not necessary, but they highly recommend it so you can do a nice clean install, and I'm all about trying to make it as clean as possible. And so I went ahead and disassembled that. It really wasn't that difficult at all. There was just a series of, I believe, 5 screws. You take the screws out and then you carefully just kind of lift it up and out of the way. And what I have here, I was trying to figure out essentially, you know, what steps to do. We have a whole mess of just different wires that this all came with. Especially this big bundle here. It's got me just a little concerned because that's a lot of different wires. But nonetheless, I'm pretty excited about trying to get this in here. Essentially what we have is we have a transmission temperature. We also have something here so you can see the instructions. And then we also have basically this one here. It doesn't look like it's going to be too hard, but the main thing with this is we want to see what that boost temperature, just make sure everything is running at its best at all times. And so what I'm going to try to tackle first off is there's a couple different things. First is there's, I don't know if you can see right underneath there where my finger's pointing. I'm going to have to take that, it's just a 7/16 little nut out, and then there's basically the whole setup is you just have to put the Teflon tape around it, screw it in, and then take your wires back against the firewall. We also then have to drill in back by the manifold here so we can have a good accurate temperature. They recommend essentially, and it makes it a lot of sense, to basically try to stay back into the manifold a little bit so you can get a little bit more accurate reading. So we went ahead and took just a little bit of a punch, center punch, and tapped a hole there. So then the recommendations are essentially to start with the 1/8 inch drill bit and then work your way up to the 11/32 and then be able to basically thread it in from there. And then also, I'm not going to get down, well maybe I will get down, but under the transmission there is a nut down here. Let me see if I can find it for you. And up in this area, it might be just a little bit hard to see, but I'll try my best. There's basically like a test nut right through here. There's 2 different nuts. There's one here and then there's one here. This one that sits back just a little bit here, that's where we're going to go ahead and try to, we're going to take that nut out, and then we're going to screw in the fitting there, and then we'll just run it up out of the way of moving parts and then tie it in also to the firewall. Make everything clean going in there, and then my goal, I don't know how much time I'm going to be able to commit to this, but my goal right now is to try to get the manifold and basically get everything outside all set up, wired, and then stuck through the firewall. And if I can get that done in the next couple minutes, I'm going to be excited about that. So that's the goal. We're going to go ahead and get started with it. And so let me get everything set up, camera set up, and then we'll kind of tackle one thing at a time. Now I already have put the Teflon tape in, threaded this together. I probably should have waited on putting this together until after I had this first fitting in there, but nonetheless I already did it before I thought about it, and so now it's just a matter of trying to twist this whole thing in there. So we went ahead and we got that routed out there, down through there, then back over. One thing I forgot to do earlier was to disconnect the battery. I think it's in 1/2 inch, because we're going to eventually be working with the gauges. When I say gauges, I mean not just the gauges, but the power supply as well. Okay, so we're underneath where the transmission is, and if you could see from before, we have basically a test hole, which is right up here. And so it's a 7/16 bolt, and what I'm going to be doing is just basically back that out, and then I'm going to thread the fitting in there, and then once I get that fitting in there, I'll turn the camera back on and show you basically what it looks like. And it's just basically a fitting that has 2 wires hanging out, and then we attach those wires and then feed them up where there's no moving parts to the fire panel within the engine compartment. Okay, so what I went ahead and did was I went ahead and screwed in that filament there, that fitting, and then you can see the brown and the green wiring. And what I did was I basically tucked it up and ran it back, tried to keep it out of the way. And then once I found some other wires up there, I just ran it up into the firewall there. So I just got a couple temporary zip ties, and then what I'll do is I'll tack it up a little bit better once I get everything else in place. But for now, it's up, it's out of the way, and that way I can test everything, and then once all the gauges are in, if it's tested, then I'll make it a little bit more final. So anyway, I want to show you that, and then now we're going to get to starting to do the manifold tap. We're now up at the manifold tap where we want to get a good temperature reading. So the suggestion is basically to take one of these punches or some type of tool to be able to mark where you want it. I've already done this earlier today, but we want to keep it back away from the turbo just a little bit. Now the recommendations are to start with a 1/8 drill bit, and then just to drill that and work your way up to the larger bit. Doing this kind of makes me honestly a little bit nervous, because you don't want to ever do anything wrong. I got on some forums because in some of the other ones they say that when you're going to go ahead and tap this and get it ready for threading, they want you to use one of these right here. That number is going to be the 1/8 NPT 27. Well, in the recommendations, they basically say to use the drill bit size R, which I had no idea what the flip size R was. I've never heard of that before. So I guess maybe it's part of being a newbie. But nonetheless, when I got on the forums, there was a couple different recommendations. Most guys said that they would use the 11/32, so working up to that. And so my goal is to basically work up to 11/32, and then we'll use this piece here to be able to thread it, so then that way we can screw a fitting in. As they say, to basically use a shop vac and then a magnet. And wouldn't you know it, my magnet's too big to go down the hole. Okay, so I had to, the camera battery died, and so I had to go ahead and improvise. I'm using my phone now. But I got this drilled out and I got it tapped as well. And what I tried to do then is I went ahead and used the shop vac to try to clean out as much as I possibly could. And then I was going to stick my magnet down there, because that's what the Glowshift recommends doing. The problem being is that my magnet was too big to get down into the 11/32 hole. So I had to run next door to Randy's. Randy happened to have a small one, but I wanted to show you just a little bit. I've already cleaned this off one time, so there might be still more down in there. But when I take this magnet and I put it down into that manifold where I drilled the hole, you can see just based off of pulling it out here one time, and this is the third time that I've actually done this, how many shavings are down in there. So I don't know if it would do a whole lot of damage or not, but nonetheless, for the time it takes to run that magnet down in there and clean it up, it's probably worth it to make sure it's all cleaned out pretty good. So nonetheless, just want to share that with you. Once I get it all cleaned up, I'll do this a few times, then I'll go ahead and get the camera back on and thread this thing, this temperature gauge down in there. Finally got this all cleaned up, and now I'm going ahead and threading this in there. Basically the directions say to try to make sure that this is about halfway down in the direction of the manifold. So I'm going to basically put it right around there. And then once I get this all screwed in, then I'm going to zip tie this line across that back firewall. so this is the moment of truth, so to speak. I just hooked the battery back up, and now it's just a matter of trying to see if this actually works. You see light with all the gauges, so that's a good sign. I'll go ahead and bring it in here. Sorry about the annoying sound here, but we can see. Okay, so I just got everything hooked back up. The panel itself, over here where the gauges are, the instructions basically show that you're supposed to screw in the new piece to the old piece of trim, but it just wouldn't work that way because this trim is not a snap-on trim. It's actually screwed in by that initial piece, and so I had to basically modify it a little bit. And I did get it all hooked up, and so I decided I'd go ahead and take it around the block and just kind of see how things are going. We can see here the lower one is basically our temperature as far as the where it goes into the manifold. We then have the second one up, which is your trans temp. I wasn't sure if these are working or not because for the little while they weren't moving, but now that I've been driving for about 5 minutes, that trans temperature gauge is going up. And then we have the PSI boost, which is the top one. It's honestly a little bit hard to see from just the eye. I mean, you can definitely see the dial, but it's hard to read just because of the angle and so forth. But when you start jumping on it, you can see it does definitely move up and then drop down based off of what I'm doing with the acceleration of the truck itself. So it looks like everything is actually working. The only one thing that I didn't get hooked up is there's basically an orange wire that is one of the power wires that they recommend that you hook up to your light switch that dims. And so then that way, if you desire to dim these lights while you're driving, just like you would with your overall dash lights, like you would see if I do this, then it has that ability to do that. But I honestly could not figure out how to get my light switch out, and so for whatever reason, not that I like to quit on anything, but I went ahead and just kind of put it to the side for a while, and I can hook it up maybe at a later time. But for now, I'm pretty happy that we got these things all hooked up. What's also kind of cool is just the fact that you can touch the dials, and you can each of these has a little button on them, and you can change them to be able to have different colors if you want. So just kind of a neat little feature. Kind of depends, give you a little attitude based off your personality, but nonetheless, just want to show you that. So it looks at this point like everything has been successful install, and so when I get back to the barn, I'll just make sure that everything is still in tight as far as all the external features, and we should be good to go. Okay guys, I just want to wrap up this video for my dad. I just want to show you really quick the finished product in the light. Let's get up here. Here they are, if I can get it to focus at all. Okay, not gonna do it. Let me get out my light here from my phone. Okay, so there's your boost gauge, trans temp, EGTs. Pretty clean install. Dad did a pretty good job. Typically when he was working on that, I was working on other videos, editing other videos, and stuff of that nature, so I couldn't be out here most of the time. But anyways guys, I just want to thank you so much for watching. I'm going to encourage you guys to like the video if you haven't already. Leave a comment below, subscribe if you're new, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace. Yeah.